1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 23 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I was watching a video, and it was a young man, and he was playing the violin, and he was playing a Lady Gaga song.
Oh.
And it was so cool. And to me, it sounded like it was like two worlds come together. Not that Lady Gaga doesn't appreciate classical music. I'm not saying that. She probably does, listening to the way she sings. But in my mind, what happened right there was that two worlds came together in one. Somebody who plays and loves classical music decided to play in his own way something that's considered pop music or maybe even rock. I don't even know what Lady Gaga might be considered. Our next guest does something similar in the literary world. He's been with us before, and I hope I'm saying his last name right, Ian Doescher. If I'm saying that wrong, he'll correct me. He is also a musician and an author, and I'm not so sure if I pronounce this theologist or theologist, but that's what it says also. He has been with us before, and he combines the world of Shakespeare with the world of Star Wars.
Yes.
Which is really, really, really cool. I can't remember the name of the book he was on with us once before to talk about, but today he's on to talk to us about Tragedy of the Sith's Revenge. So if you are a Star Wars fan and a Shakespeare fan, you will love this book and hopefully this interview. Ian Doescher. Good morning, Ian. Am I saying your last name right, first of all?
Good morning, and yes, you are. 500 bonus points.
All right. Excellent. And where are you calling from? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, currently on a book tour. I'm from Portland, Oregon, though.
How many of these books have you done?
This is the sixth book in the series. So we started, for those who know Star Wars, we started with the original trilogy and did those three books, and now have just finished up the prequel trilogy with a Shakespearean version of Revenge of the Sith.
So tell me about your background. And I'm sure that I must have asked you this once before, but are you a Shakespeare student? There's probably a word for that, right?
I'm not a scholar or anything like that. I would call myself a hobbyist when it comes to Shakespeare. Ever since I started studying Shakespeare in high school, I just sort of fell in love with his work, the way that he creates characters and tells stories through drama. I have a theater background, so that undoubtedly helped. And when I was starting to, study Shakespeare for the first time, it was around the same time that Kenneth Branagh was coming out with wonderful Shakespearean adaptations, Much Ado About Nothing being first and foremost among them, for me anyway. So I've just sort of loved Shakespeare for a long time now, and it's just been a passion of mine.
And obviously,
which is also true of Star Wars.
I was going to say, it's obviously, you love Star Wars. So I can remember, Robin, how long ago? It was maybe 20 or 30 years, we had this CD, and whatever the CD is, it was called Symphonic Stones.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
And what it was the London Symphony Orchestra playing music by the Rolling Stones. Now, here's I have a question I'm going to get to. Somebody who couldn't stand the Rolling Stones listened to it. It was at another radio station. They said, "That is beautiful. What is that?" And I said, "It's the Rolling Stones." "Oh, come on, that's not the Rolling Stones." I said, "Well, it is, but it's played by the symphony orchestra." "Oh man, I never knew that their music was so beautiful." So, do you have people who are like diehard literature people who love Shakespeare type of work, but would just kind of write off anything contemporary like Star Wars? And then they're kind of change their mind about it when they see it written the way you write it.
Interestingly, I think actually what happens more often is the opposite, where people say to me, I've never liked Shakespeare, and I always found it too hard to read, but I read your books and liked your books, and now I'm going to go give Shakespeare a try again, which, believe me, is a total honor for me as an author to hear. I mean, more related to what you were saying, a college professor of mine, he taught the one Shakespeare class I ever took in college, he read the manuscripts of the first 3 books for me, and helped coach me through some Shakespearean grammar issues and things like that. But he had never seen Star Wars at all. So after he read the first book, he said to me, "Oh, I've got a feeling about that Luke and Leia." And I thought to myself, "Yeah, you've got the wrong feeling, though."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Pretty funny.
So
that was my one example. Yeah.
So, okay, we speak to authors. And I'm confused about the whole Star Wars. I know George Lucas created this, but we speak to authors, right, Robert? What are their names who write Star Wars books?
Kevin Anderson is one.
Yeah.
One author that writes the book.
So can anybody write a Star Wars book? I don't understand how the copyright laws work.
Well, no, you definitely have to get approval and licensing from Lucasfilm. So there's a whole process. They have a whole publications department, and they are, they review carefully your idea and really sort of hone your idea. So when we first approached them a little over 3 years ago with this idea, they actually came back to me and said, we like this first draft, okay, but we'd love to see if you can do more with it. Sort of take it outside the bounds of the movie more, really make it your own, which I think was very smart of them. They were basically saying, if you're going to do this Shakespearean concept, go all the way with it, and make it really fun. So. That was a great, sort of thing for me to be able to do as a writer and as a Star Wars fan, to be able to go and really have a lot of fun with it. So so any of these Star Wars writers who are writing Star Wars books have been through the same process. They're having their manuscripts reviewed by Lucasfilm, just like mine was.
I love the illustrations in the book too. You characterize them as Elizabethan.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They, the illustrations just do such a great job of helping you imagine this world where Star Wars characters might have actually existed in the mind of Shakespeare, and sort of what that might have looked like, or what a performance of these plays might look like. Where you've got Han Solo dressed in like knickerbockers and tights and that kind of
thing. Right. All right, so when Yoda talks, he says things like, "Be back, I will," instead of I will be back.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I can't quote anything. But anyway, so would Shakespeare do the same thing? And when you write that character, Yoda, do you have to kind of twist it even more? Because Shakespeare sometimes does that by itself. By himself.
Yoda was an interesting challenge because already you had, with iambic pentameter, you're already sort of messing around with word order a bit to get things to fit into the verse. So with Yoda, I knew I had to do something special, so I took his lines and put them into haiku, which was very much not Shakespearean, but was very much in keeping with the spirit of this project. Where just having fun with language, basically.
Oh, very cool. We have to take a little break, but we will be right back with Ian Doescher. His new book is called Tragedy of the Sith's Revenge. It's William Shakespeare's adaptation, if you will, according to Ian Doescher. It's his work, really. Star Wars Part the Third.
That's right.
Star Wars Part the Third. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. The flood watch is in effect for coastal counties through late tonight. It'll be mostly cloudy today with a couple of showers and heavy thunderstorms. Watch for localized flooding, the high 81 to 85. Mostly cloudy tonight with a couple of showers and a heavier thunderstorm, low 69 to 73. For tomorrow, variable cloudiness with a heavy thunderstorm or two around, the high 83 to 87. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy. never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
We're saving thousands with Robert Palmer.
So rule number one is always shop around. Always shop around. If you're trying to get a mortgage, if you're trying to get the best credit card, if you're looking at student loans, cell phone bills, you name it, rule number one is always shop around. Always shop around.
That's rule number one, just one more vital part of fighting back to stop being a financial zombie. Yes, you can take the mystery out of the complicated world of finances. Take charge when it comes to your money. Listen in on The Source, 96.3 FM and 1370 AM, Saturdays at 12:05.
Robin, let's try a little plant trivia. Name this nursery. It's a not-for-profit, and it teaches growing and caring for plants to their students.
Oh, that's easy. Kenny's Place.
Or how about this one? It's a nursery conveniently located between Ocala and Bellevue.
Again, it's Kenny's Place.
Or how about this one? A nursery with a wide variety of just what you need or want at the most reasonable prices.
Kenny's Place, of course.
Kenny's Place at 7677 Southeast 41st Court. Give them a call at 867-1213. It's a caring place for people and plants. It's Kenny's Place. All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Ian Doescher is on the phone. His book is called William Shakespeare's Tragedy of the Sith's Revenge, Star Wars Part the Third. And this is, I think, what do you say, the fourth book in this? I'm not even sure if I remember. Do you know what I wanted to ask you? I am not a Shakespeare person, so I have to ask you this, Ian. What is iambic pentameter? What is that? I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
Iambic pentameter is the verse that Shakespeare wrote in. So it's a series of, it's a syllable pattern. It is 5 iams, so that's why pentameter is like 5, and an iam is a soft syllable followed by a hard syllable. So basically the pattern is da-dum, 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 da-dum. The classic example I always give is from a Simon and Garfunkel lyric, I'd rather be a hammer than a nail.
Oh, okay.
Iambic pentameter.
And that's intentional. Did Paul Simon do that intentionally?
That's a great question. I haven't asked him.
Do you know?
Do you know
that when you bring up Simon and Garfunkel, it is something that I can also connect with this, because again, this goes back because I'm kind of old, and I can remember my teacher when I was in probably junior high school deciding to interest us kids in poetry. I almost said pornography. Poetry. In poetry, and she would play some Simon and Garfunkel records, and in that same way. So, are the school teachers using your books?
Yeah, they are. It's right now. A lot of teachers are using the books as sort of a bridge into Shakespeare. There can be a lot of fear around Shakespeare, studying Shakespeare for kids. He has a reputation for being difficult, and so. Teachers are using my books because it's a familiar story, at least for most kids, or it can be familiar pretty easily. And then they use my books to introduce kids to iambic pentameter, introduce them to some of the literary devices that Shakespeare used, introduce them to some actual Shakespearean references that I've thrown in, things like that. So that then when they come to read something like Romeo and Juliet, it's not as big of a leap to get into real Shakespeare.
And I like your history, because you had written that when you were watching this Star Wars movie itself, that this really hit you, that it was like a Greek tragedy, and you couldn't wait to put it in Shakespearean form.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I had the idea, which sort of happened because I had just watched the Star Wars movies, had just read a mashup book, and then had just been to a Shakespeare festival, all three kind of right around the same time. I instantly thought, oh yeah, I think this really makes a lot of sense, because the Star Wars movies are these classic tales that that really probably are what Shakespeare would be writing if he were alive today, the popular entertainment of our time. And Tragedy of the Sith's Revenge, from the movie Revenge of the Sith, is such a classic tragedy where we see Anakin Skywalker as a character and we see his tragic fall and all of those things.
When we talk about popular culture in any era, you will find writers, whether it's like during the 40s, the music of the 40s, there were other writers who wrote like other writers. Right now, I mentioned Lady Gaga. There are other writers right now writing like Lady Gaga. I don't know, was there anybody who wrote like Shakespeare during his time?
Well, I mean, I think you could say that a lot of his playwrights, a lot of his contemporary playwrights sound somewhat, similar to him, which I think is why there are so many questions about whether or not Shakespeare actually wrote his plays, right? So I think that I do think you'd find a lot of similarities in the language. Certainly, a lot of people were using iambic pentameter and that sort of thing. And beyond that, you'd find a lot of similar vocabulary.
Okay.
I think the reason that we study Shakespeare and still hold him up with such reverence is that nobody ever matched him. Nobody did it quite like Shakespeare did.
So he was like the Beatles of his time. I guess.
Exactly.
I guess you could say. This is such a well done book, and you're right. Everything you're saying applies to me too. I mean, I would probably read this first and then say, "Oh gosh, maybe I could handle Shakespeare." I can remember going through it in school, but it was like a chore.
Mm-hmm. It was hard to figure out.
It was a chore. Yeah, it was.
Well, and I definitely consider myself one of the lucky ones for having been somebody who took to Shakespeare relatively easily and enjoyed Shakespeare from the start. I know that that's not the story for most kids.
I would love to be like on the shoulder of a young person who is in the bookstore and says, "Oh my gosh, on Star Wars book, how come I hadn't heard about this one?" Then they pick it up and they start reading it. I would love to know what they're thinking. Have you had that opportunity? Do you get feedback from somebody who can articulate that to you in a letter, or maybe even a fan when you're at a book signing?
I mean, I hear from parents a lot who tell me that, and this is really maybe the most flattering thing in my whole world, right? Tell me that their kids read my book and now are interested in, are excited about Shakespeare, right? And there's really nothing I could ask for more than that, because I think that's. Insofar as I'm trying to, sort of honor Shakespeare with these books and do justice to his works, I think the best thing I can do is be sort of getting people interested in him because of these books. So I do, those are the stories that I've heard. I'm sure there are also the stories that I'm not hearing of people picking up my book and saying, "Oh, I can't read this. What is this?" Happily, those stories aren't being shared with me. So.
But you are extremely inspirational, though, because sometimes people don't see the world in creativity-wise. They'll try to embark on something, and then they'll say, "Oh, this is too hard," or "Everybody's given me grief about this, so I'm not going to do it anymore." But you're actually giving children the license to be creative and to move forward, no matter what anybody else thinks.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am, I have always said that I do hope that this is something that will inspire more people to check out Shakespeare.
Do you know, I don't know if this has happened already. Usually I have an idea after other people already have the idea, but I have an idea. I mean, if George Lucas or whoever makes these movies nowadays could put into one of his movies, like let's say one of the characters in Star Wars is at a play, and on the stage is some of your writing. That would be so cool. It would kind of be like a film in a film or something.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Has anybody come to you and say, "Hey, can we do that?"
Yeah, everything would come full circle then. I mean, they could absolutely do it if they wanted to. Lucasfilm owns the copyrights for the books. That's how it works when you write a Star Wars book. So they could absolutely take a scene and put it in one of their movies. Obviously, I think that would be really fun.
Really? Well, how do you make money from it when they own the copyright?
The way it works when you're an author of a Star Wars book that's licensed by Lucasfilm is that basically, you share some of your royalties with them as it's their intellectual property, and so they make money, you make money. It all sort of gets split up.
Uh-huh.
And you say in your book that one of your most favorite scenes was in the opera house with Padme.
Yeah. So there's this scene with Revenge of the Sith where they're in this opera house, and it's Palpatine is sitting there and watching this performance I can only describe as a combination between opera and Cirque du Soleil, and he's watching this thing, and I decided to take that scene because in that scene he has a conversation with Anakin where he sort of is pushing him more and more to the dark side and telling him the story of this other Jedi who had figured out the power over death, and I decided to turn that into a scene from in Hamlet, where Hamlet has actors come in and perform a play in front of Claudius, his stepfather, that's going to, basically show Claudius that Hamlet knows that Claudius killed his father. And so I used that device to play within a play to represent that scene instead, because I thought it'd be a fun way of making a nod to Shakespeare, but keeping this scene from the movie where they're sitting there watching a performance.
That is cool.
When we do an interview with anybody, usually we get some notes sent to us with some suggested questions, and I either use them or I don't. So there's a question here I might not have asked, but I'm going to try to answer it and see if I'm right. The question is, which of the characters is the most Shakespearean? I'm just going to take a crack at this. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Am I right?
I would give Obi-Wan Kenobi maybe second place. So I would say you're just about right.
Oh,
I always have to say I always have to say Anakin in answer to that question because he is sort of the star of this tragedy. I think you could take all 6 movies and call it the tragedy of Darth Vader if you wanted to, or the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, because he does have that sort of perfect character arc. However, Obi-Wan I think is sort of right behind there, where he's also this character you can just absolutely imagine coming out of Shakespeare, and part of that I think it helps that Alec Guinness, who himself was a Shakespearean actor, it helps that
might have been maybe I was influenced. Robin, are we giving this away?
Yeah.
We're giving it away. All right. I have a copy of the book. It's called Tragedy of the Sith's Revenge. Somebody on your gift-giving list will love this. I know it's a long time before Christmas or Hanukkah.
But you better start now. It's coming up.
You got to put it away or just give it to somebody right now or keep it yourself. If you want the one that I've got here, call me 622-9622 and you can have it. I know you sent us more than one, but I think we've got one of them earmarked for somebody already here.
We've got 2 to give away.
No, somebody else wants that one.
No, we had 3.
I know, but
okay.
Dan probably wants it.
Okay.
So I'm giving this one away.
All right.
We're trying to sell some books, not give them away.
Okay.
Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
This is Sharon Smith, and I love that interview, by the way. And I love Shakespeare, even when I was a little kid, and I was older than dirt when I was introduced to Shakespeare.
Well, you know where we are. You come pick up the book, all right?
Yeah, right there at the Cascades, right?
Not the Cascades. We're in the Paddock Mall now.
Oh, you're in the Paddock Mall. Well, it's been a few years since I've visited to pick up a book. But, okay, in the Paddock Mall, what part of the Paddock Mall?
Okay, we're right outside of the food court. Outside of the food court. Not inside the mall, but outside the food court.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
And if the author's still there, you could tell him that lots of people love Shakespeare. So I'm looking forward to this.
Ian, I'm sure you are there. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
It'll be waiting for you. Ian, thank you for being on the air with us today. Did he leave?
Oh, yes, so.
He left.
I guess he had another. Well, he's a conference.
All right, we'll be right back.
Upward mobility. And if they get their news in Spanish, I want them to hear that directly from me, not from a translator at Univision.
GM forfeiting $900 million as part of a deal to resolve a criminal investigation into how it dealt with a deadly ignition switch problem. And Amazon rolling out its new mass market tablet for $49.99. Fox News. We report, you decide.
A Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolor paint job or absence of safety features. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the